Ugh. Are we still in the movie new release dead zone? Fine. Here's a review of The Giver, which is almost the same as a new movie since according to the box office, nobody even knew this came out. Alright then. Okay, so the rub on why The Giver managed to bomb, even while seemingly every other movie based on the young adult dystopia genre that the original novel set the foundation for in 1993 seems to be an automatic success, has been, well, that's pretty much it right there. Whatever might have made Lois Lowry's perennial summer reading list mandate relevant in its day has by now been siphoned off by its stepchildren so completely that there's no reason left to make The Giver other than the supposed pedigree of the name The Giver. But whatever, here it is. The main thing that might have separated this story from Hunger Games, Divergent, Maze Runner, etc. is that it's technically not a dystopia story, but rather dystopia's paranoid bunker-huddling cousin, the failed utopia. The main difference is thematic, whereas dystopian speculative fiction tends to be examining a theoretical exaggeration of present-day problems as a warning to change your ways or else, failed utopia's message usually falls more along the lines of, don't change anything. Everything is exactly as good as it's going to get as it is right now, and if we change, there might be unintended consequences at some point down the road. That also tends to be why this genre is popular as young adult material. Getting a point like that across means breaking the fictional world down into simplistic black or white pieces that can prove tiresome for adults but often lines up perfectly with the stark, emotion-driven terms teenagers tend to see the world in. The sly genius behind Hunger Games and Divergent was simply going one step further, imagining dark futures where society is organized according to the pecking order of a high school cafeteria. But anyway, The Giver, being older, is still approaching its cautionary tale from the socialism versus democracy angle, imagining a repressive civilization subtly referred to as the community, created in the aftermath of some unnamed apocalyptic downfall that has preserved mankind by instituting an ultra-regimented society drained of emotions, memories of the past, and even color, because that's a nice, inexpensive visual metaphor and it's probably been long enough since Pleasantville that it'll feel like a new trick. Our hero is a precocious young boy who is informed that his predetermined role in the community is to inherit the duty of being the human memory bank for all remaining memory of the past, so that the community and its leaders have a brain to pick about various conundrums. He is to be called the Receiver, stop that laughing, and be trained in the mystic arts of viewing stock footage by his predecessor, the Giver, played by a mumbly Jeff Bridges. But when his psychological metamorphosis allows him to see the true horror of community, he and the Giver decide to fight back, which isn't really difficult since the movie is trying to work as straightforward sci-fi rather than the more esoteric symbolic book, and thus includes a magic kill switch that can turn everyone's memory back on if only it can be reached. Yeah. As for that true horror of community, well, it's that they euthanize elderly and also newborn children, determined to be in some way abnormal, a grim process that everybody knows about but has no concept of being wrong because they don't have any memories of valuing human life. Except they clearly do, because the entire purpose of setting up community was to remove pain and suffering from human life, and yeah, this would be why you don't try and play a mostly symbolic story this straight. It still reads as, depending on your point of view, either a spectacularly heavy-handed abortion metaphor or just cheap shock value trying to inflate their dramatic stakes. It's also kind of amusing to see how limited the scope of the film's visual reference is. Despite the implication that our hero's mind has been awakened to the full scope of lost human experience, the whole of what we see are just differently aligned versions of classic Americana, with community represented as a retro-futurist suburb, while the hypothetical world beyond is represented in terms of Midwestern rural tranquility, leading to a realization that the film's thematic visualization of evil and tyranny versus good and freedom break down neatly between White Guy 3000 and White Guy Rustic. For a movie all about embracing the color and diversity of the world left behind, it has about as much actual breadth and diversity in its visuals as the average spy versus spy comic. The Giver is as dull as wannabe meaningful movies based on important books can get, lifeless and musty as an untouched English class bookshelf. I'd say to skip it, but it looks like you already did. See you next time!